Good evening and welcome to Domination Submission Radio. My name is Mike Makai and I'll be your host with the most BDSM, kink, and fetish talk on Blog Talk Radio tonight. I am broadcasting live from the South Plains Leatherfest in Dallas, Texas, and we'll be talking about the leather culture and some of the things that you might find interesting about it, and you might even find yourself at an event like this sometime in the future. So hopefully we'll give you some information that will make that decision easy for you. Let me tell you a little bit about how you can be a part of this show. This is a call-in show, so if you'd like to call in to the show, just call the guest number listed on Blog Talk Radio. If you want to check out our website, go to domination-submission.com. That's domination-submission.com. There you'll see our social media like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. That way, if you follow us, we'll know you're out there and we won't feel like we're talking into a dead mic or something. Now, we are, again, broadcasting live from South Plains Leatherfest in Dallas, Texas. My co-host, Lil Red, should be joining us very shortly, not here at the festival, but in the studio, so hopefully we'll have her on the line in just a little bit. My guest tonight is a friend of a friend named Syr Mad Dog, and that's Syr, S-Y-R, Mad Dog, and she is a second-time attendee at the South Plains Leatherfest, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what we might expect from attending something like that. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, very well, thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here.
Those of you listening might have picked up that subtle cue that Syr Mad Dog is not from the United States. She is attending here from Australia, where she is the title holder in the Master Slave competition. What is the title you actually hold?
The Australian Master Slave competition. I'm the master, and Amy is my slave, and we're the inaugural winners.
Cool. Now, the first question that I know is on the mind of everyone listening tonight is, how do you compete in a master slave competition? Obviously, it's not like Miss America where you've got to sing and dance and do the catwalk in a bathing suit. So tell us a little bit about what is involved in a master slave competition.
Not quite the bathing suit, no. It's about how you hold yourself, how you fit into the community, your knowledge of the leather culture and leather world, and the dynamic between the master and the slave. So very much your ideals and how you fit into that culture.
Okay, now is this a series of interviews that you go through, or is there a presentation that you have to give? How does that work?
It's a little bit of all of those things. This South Plains is actually the International Master Slave Competition, and what they do while they're here is the couples that are competing are judged on how they interact with everyone that's here at the conference, how they interact with each other, their knowledge. The judges actually do a prolonged interview process, which is open to the public that are here, and they also have some pop questions that are bounced off those that are in the gallery, and that's based around what you believe in, how you view the leather culture, how you view leather interactions, and specifically how you view the master-slave dynamic.
Okay, so that opens up a lot of questions that we're going to get into here, because I have to tell you I have very little experience in the leather culture, which you just mentioned, and this is a leather event, South Plains Leatherfest. Tell the listeners a little bit about how the leather culture differentiates itself from other parts of the BDSM culture.
Okay, the idea behind being leather folk is it's not just about wearing leather as a texture and a material. It's about holding yourself to a particular set of codes, a moral code, and holding yourself to how that works. So whether you belong to the other side of the code, that you're a master, or whether you belong as a boy or a girl or a slave, how does that work? So when we talk about masters and slaves, we're talking about power dynamics. So you can have daddy girl, daddy boy, you can have master slave, you can have dominant submissive. But specifically, the competition here is about the masters and the slaves.
The leather culture is kind of an offshoot, an outgrowth of the gay culture, wouldn't you say? Or is this a kind of a hybrid between the gay culture and the BDSM culture? How would you characterize the leather subculture?
That depends entirely, Michael, who you talk to. The leather culture has been around for a very, very long time. It's become more noticeable and far more accepted in the broader sense probably in the last 40 years. The gay guys certainly founded their leather culture more after the boys came back from World War I and World War II because they missed their camaraderie and they needed somewhere to go. So they started their own subcultures and they went that way. There has been some leather culture in the heterosexual scene for a long time. It's been out there. Master slave has been around for, oh Christ, no one knows how long. We're not talking about buying and selling people as chattels, as in Greek, Roman, plantation style, none of that. We're talking about consensual, giving yourself to that relationship and making a commitment. And it's been around for a very, very long time. It's not something that just popped up recently.
You're part of the leather culture, obviously, having gone to great expense and time and effort to get all the way to the other side of the planet to attend the South Plains Leatherfest where we're at today. And this is your second time, and obviously there's a huge amount of expense coming here. So what is it that drives you to attend an event like this for the second time when it's very, very expensive and a huge drain on your resources and time? What is it that compelled you to become a part of the international leather event like this one?
It's the feeling of family. It's very much, it is a subculture. Anyone that's been involved with the motorcycle clubs and that kind of thing will understand what I'm talking about. Anyone who's been in the military will understand what I'm talking about. It's that broader family. The fact that you belong to that automatically gets you acceptance with other people that have the same values. No matter where you go, you're part of that family. It's like you're all cousins that have just got back together again, and you just haven't seen each other for a while. I came here 2 years ago, and walking in downstairs and sitting down, instantaneously, faces are like, don't remember where I met you last? Oh my God, I've seen you again. That's fantastic. It's great to see you. You're staying for the conference. They still haven't seen me for 2 years. And if I didn't have a room to stay in, they'd be helping me out to find somewhere to sleep.
You're part of a local leather group back in Australia, Melbourne, I believe.
Yes.
And I don't believe that a lot of our listeners are going to be real familiar with groups that are devoted entirely to the leather culture. Most of them are in BDSM munch groups or other groups like rope play groups or impact play groups, things like that. Tell folks, what is it that someone in a leather group does back home at their local leather munch group, I guess, when you're not attending an international leather fest like this one?
Well, the whole leather subculture is about living a lifestyle. It's not just attending the munches or putting your leathers on to go to something like this. What we do here, we do at home every day as well. So it's our lifestyle. It's like being in the military. It's not something you do only for a couple of hours once in a while. It's actually very intrinsic to the core of the person. So we talk a lot about honour and integrity, loyalty and trust, responsibilities and duty in the leather culture. But the heart of it is actually how we feel. And it's about heart and service, very much so. So for leather culture and for the boot blacks, the masters and the slaves, it's very, very much about what we give to our community as much as what we get out of them.
You mentioned boot blacking, and I've got to admit this is one area where I'm completely ignorant, and I just spoke with your slave Amy a little bit about boot blacks and boot blacking as part of a subculture that I'm very unfamiliar with, and I like to think I'm pretty familiar with almost all of the subsets of the BDSM lifestyle, but boot blacking was up until 20 minutes ago, a huge mystery to me. So tell our listeners, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, so tell our listeners a little bit about what's involved in being a boot black and what sort of things does a boot black do?
Okay. The boot blacking is very personal to individuals, but it's basically about how we go about caring for our leather. And as the name infers, a lot of it's to do with the shoes, the leather footwear that we wear. And it starts with how you care for your boots. And it can be as simple as just giving them the basic wipe down, clean, and put a bit of polish on and brush it off. Very basic, what we call basic bar showings. All the way through to some very intensive drills required for doing exotic leathers like the snake skins and fish skin leathers and things like that. So it's everything from a master's cover, the master's cap, which are made of leather, all the way through down to what you put on your feet. So every piece of leather that you own, a master, needs to know how to care for that. Now, the fact that I know how to do all my own boot blacking, because 27 years in the military meant I had to be able to care for my own gear, doesn't mean I always do my own gear. There's other people who do it for me, because everyone in the leather culture has an idea. They don't always care for their own things, even with a boot black, but everyone has an idea that there's care required and conditioning required and specialist cares. And we don't all have the skills to do that, but the boot blacks most certainly do. And an event like this, the boot blacks set their chairs up, and you can come along and have them clean your gear. And if you want the experience, you can actually have them worship your leathers, which is far more intense than just having them cleaned. So they put their heart and soul into it, and they will actually put a far more intimate and even a far more sexual component into that, if you agree, and it becomes a full-on scene. Any boot blacking is a scene. but it becomes a far more intimate personal scene, and you never interrupt a bootblack when they're working.
Interesting. Amy told me about 30 minutes ago when we were discussing this prior to the show that bootblacking is kind of founded on the notion that you start out performing service and working your way up through ranks, and you can be a submissive or a dominant and still be a bootblack. Is that true?
Yeah, quite correct. I mean, I'm a master, but I'm still very much a passionate bootblack. So, yeah. I mean, I was doing some boots a couple of months ago for someone else, another master in Melbourne, and the shock horror on some people's faces was like, oh my God, there's a master on the floor doing boots. And it's like, why? I'm a bootblack. There's no dramas with that. But people expect the slaves and the submissives to be the ones doing all the blacking. They're not used to seeing the dominant members of their community doing it.
Very interesting. It's, like I said, this is something that I have not been exposed to, but I find it very fascinating. Now, tell us a little bit about the differences, the nuances within the lifestyle and at an event like this. For example, here at this event, the South Plains Leatherfest, Dallas, Texas, they have two different tracks of classes and seminars and workshops that they're presenting here. There's one track primarily based on the master-slave dynamic and some sadomasochism, S&M. And then you have another track that's based almost entirely on leather. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Leather and S&M, and then the other one is master-slave. Can you tell us a little bit about how they break down these different subcategories of the leather culture and at an event like this?
Sure. The MS, the master-slave, is who we are. The SM and the leather is what we do and how we do it. So that's the most simplest terms to put it in. So when you look at what they're talking about when they talk about the master-slave classes, they're talking about how the dynamics work. How do you present yourself as a master? How do you reconcile doing what you do as a master, putting your foot on someone's neck and holding them there when you just want them because you feel like being the nasty pastor today and you feel like being the living bejesus out of someone for the next 3 hours? How do you reconcile that's okay because they said please and thank you for it? Now that's the sadomasochism side of it. So that's how you express it. But who you are is the master slave. So that's why there's two tracks there. And there's S&M in outside the leather as well. When I was introduced to the whole leather culture, I didn't know the name for where I belonged. So I came through the door into the whole BDSM world. I was like, oh my God, it's a circus. I don't belong with the rest of the people out there. I belong with the circus. This is wonderful. And then once I stepped through that door, I found this other little group, which was like all the people that did the trapeze art stuff, which was the leather culture. I went, you know what? That's my little corner. That's where I belong because I'm not the same as these other people, what I call the BDSMers and the Kingsters, because they do things to a certain point and then they stop. So I belong over here because with my military background, the discipline and the way things are set up and the yes and no sir and how things flow, that suits me down to the ground. I do it the same as breathing. So for me, that's why I'm part of the leather culture.
What would somebody expect if they were going to make some plans to attend an event like this, like a Leatherfest or a leather fetish event of some sort, and they're held all over the world, not just here in the United States, but tell my listeners a little bit about what they should expect if they're going to attend one of these things for the first time.
A bloody big culture shock. If you're not used to it, it opens your eyes. It's totally different. You see a lot of very quiet tagging along. You see a lot of laughter. Certainly at the play parties, you see a lot of very heavy-duty play. And some of it's done in utter silence, which for some people that's quite confronting. But it's all about being who you are. And you see the people doing what's called being on point. So you see the slaves on point. So they are at their master's left-hand elbow and they are tagging along, and in a lot of cases people sort of blinking out, oh, they look like servants. That's because they're on point. They're there to be watching every move of the master, and they're there for the master's convenience. And that's part of their service, and they're happiest when they're doing that.
You mentioned the play party, and there's a play party at this event. Tell my listeners a little bit about what to expect at a play party. For example, at most BDSM events where there are play parties, there's sometimes nudity, but there's very, very rarely any kind of sexual play. Can you tell our listeners how this might be different or the same, and what they would expect if they were attending a play party like this?
Basically, when you come to a leather event, the play party is virtually anything goes. So, yes, if you want to have in your little corner of the party, if you want to get down dirty and fuck, you can. If you want to pull out a knife and cut someone up, yes, you can. The rules are don't send someone to the emergency room because that's untidy, that calls the wrong attention to the play party. Outside of that, there's really anything goes. As long as whatever you're doing you can fix it, then that's pretty well okay. As long as they're consenting to it, that's fine.
What do you think are some of the other differences that someone who has been to a lot of BDSM events in general would find very different about this sort of an event?
Well, it just depends on what kind of event you've been to previously. There are some very hard, heavy hitters that come to these events because they're used to playing quite hard. Literally, the MS dynamic is that the slaves are the property of the masters. So the dynamic is they belong to us. We own them. They consent to that when they enter into the relationship. If they don't want to consent to that, then we dissolve the dynamic. They are free to dissolve the dynamic any time they wish to, walk away, if they wish to know with consent. But apart from that, what we do is what we do. So they may not be used to seeing the masters just on a whim decide to do whatever, whenever, however. So, yeah, that may be confronting if they're not used to that kind of dominance.
Let's talk about some of the other subtle differences that you might not think about being a part of it, but for a person like myself who is attending a leather event for the first time, tell the listeners a little bit about the general makeup of the attendees here. For example, the leather culture in general is sort of an outgrowth of the gay leather culture of a few decades ago. What percentage of the attendees here do you think are gay versus hetero versus bi?
Well, that depends on which leather event you go to, because if you go to IML, almost everyone there is going to be gay. If you go to IMSL, almost everyone there is going to be gay. If you come to South Plains, maybe 45% are going to be gay, the rest are going to be straight or pansexual. So some other events that they hold will be about 50-50. So it depends on the event itself. The mix is different. It just depends on the event.
Amy mentioned something about the politics of the sexuality, sexual orientation being a basis for some politics within organizations like this. Do you see that as a big problem or a minor annoyance? Obviously, there's some politics there. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, human nature is every time you get a large group of people together, there's going to be group politics involved. So that, unfortunately, is going to pop its little ugly head up every now and again. With sexual orientation involved, then you have some tensions with some people. I mean, some people don't give a flying fuck, to put it mildly. Some are really good. Some people get stupid about it. So there's always going to be a little bit of internal politics. Is
there any conflict between couples or people in relationships? I hate to say couples because I'm poly, and so I don't like to limit myself to the whole couples thing, but what about people who are very much into the master-slave dynamic versus the dominant-submissive dynamic? Do you see that at all, or is this all pretty much master-slave here?
The majority is master-slave here because that's what it's based around. In the wider community, yes, there is some tension with the whole difference between dominants and submissives and masters and slaves, and some people say, well, it's just the same thing. It's like, yes, but no. There's dominants and submissives with the master-slaves, but it's a slightly different flavour than some of the Kingsters because they don't do it 24/7. A lot of the people that are here they live master-slave 24/7 living. So there's no, we stop it and I only see you for 2 days a week and the rest of the week you live your life however you want. That's not the case for the majority of the people that come to this event.
In the broader DS/BDSM community, you find that a lot of the master-slave couples or dynamics that you run across are Gorian-based. Do you find that within the leather community, the master-slave dynamic is not based on any Gorian history or literature?
For the most part, in the leather community, no, it's not Gorian. There's certainly a number of people that have come from that background, and Amy certainly did. That's her background. I know of at least 2 other people in our local community back home that come from Gorian background that have moved into the leather culture, and they carry some of the idiosyncrasies that come from the Gorian style with them, but it's not Gorian master that they now use. So it depends on the individuals. I mean, you most certainly can bring that with you if you so desire, because there's no one true way, so to speak. It is each individual dynamic will be different, and they're allowed to be different. There's no Bible that's been written that says you must do this written in stone tablet. And Amy and I certainly tell everyone that you have to find the correct mix for yourselves because every dynamic is different. It's like every marriage is going to be different. You can have poly setups where you have one master and several slaves. I know of a couple of masters where they are the signal master and their slave answers to them primarily, but has one or two other masters they go to for certain things because their own master doesn't. For example, I don't do rope. I don't like rope very much. So if Amy wants to go off and play rope bunny, then I will hand Amy off to one or two other people that I really trust that are very good riggers. And that's not uncommon in our community back home. So, yeah, it's very much an individualistic thing. And that's a trust thing. For the leather community, that's very much a trust thing. We're not overly jealous and possessive of the whole thing that we can't trust our slaves in someone else's presence.
Mm-hmm. You're the Australian Master Slave Competition title holder, being the master in that particular relationship, Amy being your slave. What if you happen to win this one? Does that make you the international title holders? And then if you win that one, do you go on to be the universe or the solar system Master Slave title holders? Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Okay. While we hold the Australian inaugural title, no, we can't compete in another title. It was set up so that you actually pay proper due respect to the title you hold at the time. So one title at a time, please, because there's obligations of teaching that go with the title we hold, and that's for 12 months. So we get to run around with the title patches on our back for 1 year. Once we finish with this title, then we're free to go and compete in anything else we wish, which is a really good thing because, competing and holding two titles at once, please, no. The Australian title is being developed into a feeder so that people who compete in it and hold that title can then come over here and compete in this if they so wish. There is a separate couple from our local community that are actually competing here this year.
What are you looking forward to most about attending South Plains Leatherfest this particular time?
Catching up with friends, being able to be a bit more relaxed about it, because it was fairly frantic last time, because it was like, oh my God, it's so shiny, new, everything, I want everything now. And I can be a little bit more relaxed because I can actually take more in and appreciate it better. And that's one of the things that when you come to a very first conference, it's very much, you get the frantics, you get very frantic about wanting everything right this second, and you get the frenzies. And you need to slow down and try and absorb as much as possible. To get the best out of coming to one of the leather conferences is do the lectures and the workshops because they are wonderful. Take the time to go to the play parties. Don't take yourself too short of sleep because you don't absorb enough if you do that. And trust me, being jet lagged doesn't help. And that way, when you go home, you have a lot of data you need to unpack. And it may take you 12 months to unpack everything you learn in that 4-day spread because there's a lot to learn.
I believe it. I'm looking forward to it myself. And like I said, this is my first Leatherfest, so I think I'm going to have a lot of interesting things to absorb over the next few days. Well, we've been talking to Syr Mad Dog, that's S-Y-R, Syr Mad Dog, from Australia, the Australian Master Slave Competition title holder, along with her slave, Amy, who happens to be a longtime friend of mine. And in fact, you want to hear Amy being interviewed. We interviewed her in one of our very first shows way back when we did a show on littles, so you might want to catch that one as well. I just want to thank you for being my guest tonight, and I hope that you have a great experience here at the Leatherfest. I know I plan to, and I sincerely appreciate you sharing what you know with our listeners tonight.
My pleasure, Mike. Truly was.
So we are going to go to a musical break, and after the break, on the second half of our show, we're going to be talking about BDSM dating. How do you hook up with the right person in this lifestyle? There isn't a manual for it. You just got to figure it out, and we're going to help you do that in the second half, right after the musical break. This is Mike Makai. You're listening to Domination Submission Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. You're listening to Domination Submission Radio. My name's Mike Makai. My co-host is Lil Red, and we are going to be talking in the second half of the show about BDSM dating. And what we mean by that is, how do you find that prince amongst all of those frogs, prince or princess? And my co-host this evening, Lil Red, is going to give you her side of this story. So tell me, Red, how are you finding your prince in this lifestyle?
I think prince is a very idealistic term, and I don't think it truly exists, because fairy tales are fairy tales, and you're not going to lose your glass slipper at midnight and have the guy come find you. You need to put yourself out there. You are going to meet a bunch of posers and crackheads and jackasses and asshats and jerk faces and straight-out bastards or bitches.
Posers,
either way.
Posers, crackheads, asshats, and jackasses. You're not very encouraging there. I mean, somebody listening might just get the idea that it's kind of hard to find that right guy. Are you saying this is going to be a tough...
This is a difficult task, because you have to understand who and what you are before you can expect somebody to fulfill those needs for you and you to fulfill the needs for your partner. You have to understand, are you a little? Are you a masochist? Are you a sadist? Are you a primal? Are you... Pick a fetish. Go with it. If it's not something you're okay with after you figure out, okay, I've done this for a little while and it's not exactly what I was looking for or thought it was, then continue your growth, and you're going to find people who are going to help you along your journey. It might not be your first dom or your first submissive that does this. It might be. You might get the 1 in a million lucky lottery winnings and find the absolute perfect complement to who and what you are. But you have
Red, what do you think is the most common mistake that people make in trying to find a compatible partner in this lifestyle? I mean, there are a lot of people out there looking. You know that, and I know that. Why aren't they finding what they're looking for? What are some of the mistakes that people make in their quest?
They are trying absolutely too hard to fit into something that they don't fit in. It's a square peg in a round hole. You find somebody that you have an interesting relationship with, you guys have a great conversation, there's some chemistry there, there's a little bit of spark, and you find out this is a sadist. You're terrified of pain, but you go ahead and jump into this because you think that this person is going to change everything for you. So you try your hardest to become something for someone that you're not. And then you end up getting hurt and harmed and heartbroken, and you rush into things too quickly. You don't take the time to come together and figure out if this is truly a good fit for your dynamic, for what you are. It's a lot like frenzy. It's, oh my God, I have to try, I have to find the perfect dom, I have to find the perfect sub. You don't have to find the perfect anything at that very second.
What about the process of finding a good foundation for the relationship before leaping into the BDSM? Obviously, it's a chicken and egg sort of an equation. You really don't want to have something that's entirely BDSM and then decide if you like the person, but obviously you don't expect to have a fantasy fairy tale romance before you even mention the fact that you're into the BDSM lifestyle. So what do you think is the proper balance in striking up some sort of equity in those two sides of the equation?
Finding common ground in the vanilla world is one of the best things you can do first. Do you guys like music? Do you like literature? Do you like to go hunting? Do you like to go hiking? Something concrete and vanilla that has nothing to do with either the BDSM or the DS, and becoming friends through that and learning about each other, very much like vanilla dating. And then you start incorporating some of the BDSM and the DS lifestyle. You might have some protocols where he no longer is Mike, he's now Syr. He's no longer Mike, he's now Daddy. Depending on what that dynamic is going to be, you start slowly incorporating these things, so that way it's not an overwhelming rush and you get frustrated because things aren't progressing the way you want them to.
Now, when you're starting out and just meeting a prospective dominant or prospective submissive, What are some of the things that you should be paying attention to? What are some of the things you would ask if you were interviewing? And sometimes it's really not a formalized process of interviewing somebody, but say you go out on a first date with a prospective dominant. What are some of the things that you would ask in order to give you a better foundation for deciding whether or not this person is worth seeing more of?
If we met on a site like FetLife, which very big on, and I set up a coffee meeting with someone to see how we do after we've interacted online for a little bit, I would sit down and ask them, okay, what kind of things are you into? Are they into flogging? Are they into wax? Are they into rope? Are they, what sort of things trip their triggers, and see if any of those are kind of compatible with mine. Pay attention to body language. Pay attention to the verbiage they use. Pay attention to, are they on their phone texting throughout the whole thing? Because if they are, next. If they're actually listening to you and paying attention to you as well, that's a very, very good sign, at least in my perspective. If they start asking you questions back like you're asking them, okay, I'm into X, Y, Z, what are you into? Not just a whole one-sided thing. That makes me feel more comfortable because then they're trying to learn as well, and it creates a more intimate environment because then you're actually flowing together rather than it being one side or the other.
What are some of the warning signs that you look for, some of the yellow flags or the red flags that wave you off when you are considering somebody to date and hopefully move on to a solid relationship? What are some of the warning signals you look for?
Cold and distant. After a really hot and heavy beginning, cold and distant. They start drawing away because, ooh, new shiny toy over here, I'm going to let this go to the side because I know it's going to stay here. And generally just becoming an asshat. I love that term because it's all encompassing. But they start letting you go to the side and not being your partner anymore. Because it is a partnership. It is an ebb and a flow, just like the tide. To have a very good relationship, especially balancing both the vanilla and the BDSM or the DS or all three of those lifestyles, depending on which way you go with it.
I'll tell you one of my pet peeves, and this is probably a yellow flag for other people too. I'm probably not the only one. But what about somebody who is actively out shopping for a replacement for their current partner while they're still in that relationship?
That is a very big red flag, and it's detrimental because you are now destroying a piece of the person you're with, and that can never be fixed or replaced properly, and you are now affecting the future relationships they're going into because now you've set the precedent that everything is replaceable, and it doesn't matter how valuable that is, you're going to go find something new, and they're going to be expecting the next one to do the same thing because you have now just set that precedent.
So you and I both know lots of people out there looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for a BDSM or DS relationship in all the wrong places, and not literally in the wrong places, but maybe they're going about it in the wrong way. What do you think they can do to be more successful at this particular endeavor?
Slow down. Always take your time, because you and I have both seen this where someone is online and they jump in from one relationship to another, and you see their status updates every day. They're with some new master or some new sub. Right there, that's a red flag for me, because you are so indecisive that it's insanely not funny, and you are not prepared for a true relationship where a submissive is giving themselves 100% to you and you are giving 100% to them. Poly relationships are the same way. You give 100% to the person you're with and the people you're with because every dynamic is different. So you're with sub XYZ. Well, X makes you, does the domestic things, and you like having that domestic side, and she really enjoys it, so there's that part of it. And Y, she really enjoys intellectual stimulation and conversation, and she's a very sensual person, and you have that sensual dynamic going. And Z is the heavy impact player, and X and Y aren't, so you do heavy impact with Z, and everything just flows perfectly together. You're going to have hiccups, you're going to have obstacles, but it's how you get through those and make your dynamic work. Because it's just like a regular marriage, it's just like a vanilla relationship. It is work every day to keep both parties in sync with each other.
Do you think dating in the BDSM lifestyle is harder or easier than dating in the vanilla lifestyle?
I think, in my opinion and in my experience, it's a lot harder because you're trying to not only match up the vanilla world, because you're going to interact in the vanilla world if you have that dynamic to where it's not just play partners, but you're also trying to figure out your BDSM lifestyle. How do you play? How hard do you play? How often do you play? And your DS lifestyle, are you a 24/7? Are you a weekender? Are you within the four walls of your home? Kind of thing. So in my opinion, it's a lot harder for us as lifestylers than it is for regular vanilla people because we have so much added on to with.
Gotcha. I kind of agree with you. I think there are a lot of factors that we in the lifestyle have to take into account that those lucky vanilla folk don't really have to worry about. And part of that, I think, is making sure that your kinks and fetishes are compatible. And, that's not something that the average person on the street worries too much about until much later in their relationship. So sometimes decades later in their relationship. So I agree that it is a harder thing. Well, I'm not sure that we have any golden, silver bullets that are going to solve this problem for some of our listeners out there. This is definitely a difficult and complex problem for a lot of people, but it's not that much more difficult and complex than just dating in general. I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that you do have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince or your princess. And even for a vanilla person, you might date 100 or 200 people before you find that Prince Charming or Princess Charming or whatever. And it's not a matter of failure that you've had to go through all those people. It's just that, the right person for you isn't going to be, every third person on the street. You're going to have to go through a lot of people that aren't right for you to find the people who are. So I think the advice that I would give anybody would be patient, just like you said. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Don't treat the collar like it's something trivial. It is a commitment, sometimes on a par with or even surpassing marriage. So, accepting somebody's collar after the first date is a little like getting married after the first date for a lot of people, and it would be just as ridiculous. So that would be my advice to folks out there. Just take your time and get to know the person. Have a solid foundation that helps you get over those minor bumps in the road that you will always find as you develop a deeper relationship. Well, we are going to go ahead and close out the show a little early this evening. I have some Leatherfest events that I have to attend, and I will definitely keep you updated. If you'd like to follow what's going on at this event with me and see how I'm doing over the next few days, please follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and I'll keep you posted. So you're listening to Domination Submission Radio. I'm Mike Makai. My co-host has been Lil Red, and we hope you'll be back next week for more DS Radio. Bye-bye now.